Part 2, regarding Isaiah 13. Now, we're going to go back a little bit into Isaiah 12 as a setup. Or, excuse me, Isaiah 8. So if I go back to Isaiah 8, we could even go back further than that, but verse 1, Yahweh said to me, take a large scroll and write on it in clear script, plunder hastens, spoil quickens. It's like, so, well, is this a prophecy of a coming problem that we should regard, or is this past tense, like the question Kurt asked earlier? Could be both, but he's talking about somebody being born. Verse 3, I approached the prophetess, Isaiah, with his wife, and she conceived and bore a son, and Yahweh said to me, name him Maher Shalal Hashbaz, plunder, hasten, spoil, quickens. For before the child knows how to say, my father, my mother. How old do you have to be to say, my father, my mother? Maybe 2 or 3 years old. Before that happens, the wealth of Damascus and the spoils of Samaria will be carried off before the king of Assyria. So Yahweh's saying, listen, he's calling in the pirates, the Assyrians, these big bad guys, live up in what we now would think of as Turkey. Nineveh was their capital. He's going to call them in, and they're going to ravage Syria and Damascus, the spoils of Samaria. They're just going to wipe out the whole northern land of Israel. And then he goes on to say, because this people has rejected the gently flowing water of the Shiloah and has rejoiced with Rezin and the son of Ramallah. In other words, Yahweh had given his Torah to his people. And he says, hey, look, I'll give you the Sabbath day, rest and peace, and I'll make the land cooperate. And it's like, no, we want gladiator fights, and we want money, and we want extravagances, and like Hollywood movies. We don't want a nice peaceful meadow. We want wars and car chases in the movie. Anyway, behold, the land is bringing upon them. Behold, the Lord is, Adonai is bringing upon them the mighty and abundant waters of the Euphrates River. Euphrates in parentheses. It basically is saying the king of Assyria who lives up there. Remember, I'm mentioning this because right now the Euphrates River is basically drying up. This tremendous river, it's almost like the Mississippi, dried up. And there's other prophecies about when it dries up, then there's going to be other events of invading armies and all. The king of Assyria in all his glory, and it will rise above all its channels, overflow its banks. It'll pass through Judah, flooding as it passes, reaching to the neck, and to its wingspread will be the full breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. Emmanuel? Isn't that Jesus? Verse 9 of Isaiah 8, destroy, O you peoples, and then be devastated yourselves. That's what I was saying. If he uses Assyria to bring the destruction, then he's going to make Assyria pay for what it did. Did the same thing with Babylon, same thing with Egypt. Hear this, all of you far away. There's that same word, merachech. Gird yourselves and then be shattered. Well, gird yourselves, like gird up your loins, is to like equip yourselves for war and then be destroyed. So it's like, what's he doing? He's just yanking everybody's chain. Is that the way he does stuff? Plan a conspiracy, and it shall be annulled. Speak your peace, it shall not stand, for God is with us. That's the word Amnuel, Emmanuel. So if you go to chapter 7, it talks about Emmanuel also, and people say, well, we can talk about that later, but it says like, the virgin shall conceive, and verse 13, hear now, O house of David, is that not enough for you to scorn human, that you also scorn even my Elohim? Therefore, verse 14 of Isaiah 7, the Lord himself will give you a sign. See, that was the king of Israel and the king of Syria had made a military agreement, a pact against Judah, and the king of Judah was really afraid. And he calls in Isaiah and he says, oh, is Yahweh going to feed me to these beasts? And he says, listen, ask for a sign. I'm not going to ask for a sign. That's Isaiah saying, I will not test Yahweh. And he says, listen, okay, he'll give you a sign. Behold, the maiden will become pregnant and bear a son, and you will name him Emmanuel. He will eat cream and honey as soon as he knows to abhor evil and choose good. He will eat cream and honey. To abhor evil and choose good. Well, how old do you have to be? 5 or 6, 3 or 4, maybe? For before the child will know to abhor evil and choose good, the land of these 2 kings whom you fear will be abandoned. Yahweh will bring upon you and upon your people and upon your father's family days such as not come since the day Ephraim turned away from Judah, the king of Assyria's invasion. In other words, he's saying this word, the virgin shall conceive. It doesn't say, it says the maiden here in this, conceive and bear a son. It's not talking about Jesus. Why is that taken as the great Christian prophecy? It's not a prophecy. In fact, the word Amnuel, ayin mem means with, nun vav is a suffix, means us, and el, aleph lamed, is short form for God. God is with us. He's not saying that. He's saying that people believe that Elohim is with us. And when Yahweh is with us and we're not doing what he said, he's going to bring in Assyria and the Euphrates River, as it were, flooding over the entire land and inundating, removing everything, destroying, like this invading force that they say was Media, that's from the far side of the heavens. This is typical behavior for Yahweh to do against his own people. Why? Because we don't listen to what he says. Now, let's look at this, verse 12. Do not speak of a kuf shin resh. That word kuf shin resh is cabal, conspiracy, in league together, bound, tied, connected, joined, a vigorously knit plot. Lakal, about everything, asher yod aleph mem resh. Do not speak of a conspiracy about anything or everything that these people, ha'am hazah, these people, kashar. It's like to these people, who? Israel. So different people groups have different tendencies. Apparently, it's the tendency of Israel to be fascinated with conspiracy theories. That doesn't mean they're not true. It just means that they're constantly thinking and talking about these things that this people constantly talks about. And then it says, Vav Aleph Tav hyphenated with this word Mem Vav Resh Aleph Vav. Well, Mem Vav Resh, literally in the dictionary, means to change or exchange. Exchange. Oh, this, I'll trade you this for that. You know, we'll what comes around goes around. That's mishvat. What you deserve, you're going to get. But this is, they're changing something. Well, the word Resh Aleph is where we get the word for fear. Mem Vav Resh Aleph would be the thing you fear. Fear, terror, or awe-inspiring, like space aliens or Nephilim or demons. Oh, gosh, those guys are really pretty, it stirs our imagination with creepiness. But he says, the Mem Vav Resh Aleph Vav, lo tira, don't fear them. And lo, there's this word, the last word of verse 12, Isaiah 8 says, Tav ayin resh, there's that word to uncover, lay bare, expose, ayin resh yod zadi. Well, that ayin resh zadi means terrible, ruthless, strength, power, might. See, that's a similar sounding word to the courage and the strength, Isaiah, son of Emmet. Strength, power, might, cruelty, tyranny. Do not reveal or lay bare or expose their terrible ruthlessness. Do not be afraid. And then verse 13, Aleph Tav Yahweh Zavot, Aleph Tav Vav, Tav Kuf Dalet Yod Shin Vav. Yahuwah Zavot, his Aleph Tav, his kadoshness. Vav, Hey Vav Aleph, he, it, or that same Mem Vav Resh Aleph Kaf Mem. Kaf Mem suffix means you all, Mem Vav Resh Aleph. That's the exact same word that says, when you guys get the jitters looking at this conspiracy plots, fear, terror, awe-inspiring, do not fear that. You give fear, terror, awe-inspiring. Mem, vav, resh, aleph in the dictionary means exhibit, perceive, show, consider, prefer, and to make understandable. See, the mem can mean the prefix to resh, aleph, hey, which is to put on exhibit, perceive, show, consider, prefer, make understandable. But mem vav resh means change or exchange. And so by looking at the structure of how this is written here, it says, because we are fascinated with conspiracy theories, space aliens and demons and Nephilim, and the World Economic Forum, and we've thrown away, we've exchanged our regard of what Yahuwah Zavot has put on exhibition, his Aleph Tav. And what it says is, he and it is what we're supposed to mem, ayin, resh, zadi, adore, admire, esteem. The celestial awe, tremble in terror. So the same two words that his people are doing regarding these conspiracy matters. He says, don't even mention them. We're supposed to be giving Yahuwah Zavot and his Aleph Tav that regard. And then in verse 14, it says, there's this letter, Vav, Hey, Yod, Hey, Lamed, Mem, Kuf, Dalet, Shin. And there exists, or there will be. Is Yahweh going to make it this way? Lamed mem kuf dalet shin. That which appears as kadosh, a sign, sacred. But see, if lamed mem kuf dalet shin can mean away from kadosh, then what he's kind of saying here is that there is something which this is dangerous ground here. There's something which we think is kadosh, which is supposed to be kadosh, which appears kadosh, that isn't. What does this word mean? Lamed mem kuf dalet shin. If he's causing this to exist, then this isn't a trick of the devil. This isn't a trick of our enemy. This is Yahweh doing this. He's going to make something exist which we think is kadosh, which ought to be kadosh, holy, sacred, devoted, assigned, pure of him. But it's not. It's mem kuf dalet shin. It goes on to say vav lamed, and as aleph bet nun. Well, aleph bet nun is the word stone or petrified, but also means to be needy or desiring of. So this thing is not only going to be not kadosh, but we think it's kadosh. It's going to be something that we desire as this real stone. But then nun gimel pei. Well, nun gimel pei means to strike, smite, stumbled, or plague. Gimel pei is a fence or a hedge, or like the edge of a riverbank. So you could say, is this like the stones forming a bank, a riverbank to pen you in, stones forming a wall to blockade you, to trap you? Then it says vav lamed zadi vav resh. Well, zadi vav resh, like mitzra'im, mem zadi resh, yod mem mitzra'im. Zadi resh is a rock, or a fortress, or a citadel, or a impassable blockade of mountain range. But it also means hostility or foe, to confine, besiege, bound up, a form, image, picture, shape, or a fashion. So something about this La Mekdash, something appearing as holy, as sacred, as his, is actually going to be as a wall by which we will stumble, that will hedge us in and confine us, besieging us, actually. And it's some kind of an image or a picture. Then there's this word mem kaf shin vav lamed, ma kashul. Well, that's a heavy axe. A heavy axe is something you swing or chop down a big tree. And that is similar to the word nafal, which means to fall, stumble, stagger, overthrown, or failure. So he's causing to exist something which we think is kadosh, which isn't, and it's going to cause people to be petrified, trapped, besieged, stagger, overthrown. And then it says, La Shani Beti Israel, for the two houses of Israel. Shani means to change. Lashon is the word for lip, language, or tongue. So it's also the number 2. So it means change the language. Then the word Beti, well, Bet Yod Tav is house. Tav Yod suffix means my two houses. But Bet, remember, Aleph and Bet both mean to be taught, trained, and domesticated of the house. And so to have a different voice, something changing, Shani, about what I have taught my house. Bet Tav also means daughter. I have taught the daughter of my house, Israel, certain words. Well, that would be the Torah. And something is coming that seems holy and pure, which isn't, and it's going to be something by which to trap, imprison, to fall, to cause them to stumble, stagger, and be overthrown. And then it says, Lamed Pei Chet. Lamed means as, or in the condition of. Pei Chet is a snare, a trap, and a disappointment. Vav Lamed, and also as. Mem Vav Kuf Shin. Well, Kuf Shin Hey means difficult, straw, stubbled, stiff-necked, and it means snare, obstacle, mine, a minefield, or laid out like typewriter keys, artistically arranged, hammered work. A minefield, typewriter keys, the constellations, everything laid out by somebody really smart, really carefully. It looks kadosh, but it's not kadosh. It looks sacred, but it's not sacred. It looks like Yahweh's stuff, but it's not Yahweh's stuff because it's a different voice. Lamed Yod Vav Shin Bet, regarding captivity. But the word Yeshuv, or Shin Bet, means rebel, repent, return. It's the root of the word Shabbat. And then the word Jerusalem, Yod Resh Vav Shin Lamedem. Well, the captivity of Jerusalem, but the word Resh Vav Shin in Yerushalem means poison, inheritance, dispossess. Jumping into verse 15, it says Vav and Kaf Shin Lamed Vav, stumble, stagger, cause to fall, failure, weakness, overthrown. That's the same word with the heavy axe, only with the mem is the place or the tool used for, and now this is without the mem. Bet mem, in them, with them, rabim, many or greatly, vav nun pe lamed. Hey, there's that word, the fallen, the defeated, the ruined. Vav nun shin bet resh. Again, nun shin bet means snare. Shin bet resh, shiver, as shiver me timbers, that broken, crushed, break, crumble, ruins, calamity, fracture, rupture, broken dreams. And then vav nun vav kuf shin. That's the same word as before. We had mem vav kuf shin. Here nun vav kuf shin. It means to lay bait or make bitter or make objectionable, hammered in as a nail. Hammered in as a nail. That's Yeshua's hands and feet getting nailed as a picture. And then the last word, vav, nun, lamed, kaf, dalet, vav. Well, lamed, kaf, dalet means capture, seize in a trap, to become united or grasping each other. And it's like, what does this have to do with laying bait, hammered in as a nail? So we talked before about every time you see something, see a sword coming out of the mouth, what does that mean? You see nails in the hands, what does that mean? It's not just, oh yeah, it's an event that happened. It means something. Is this saying, I said this was dangerous stuff to look at. Is this saying something about pictures, images of somebody being nailed, which unites us, is actually designed as a trap, laying bait to bring calamity, fracture, rupture, broken dreams, ruin, fallen, overthrown, weakness. By changing the language of what I told my daughter Israel. And it's artistically arranged. It looks like it's sacred, but it's not. Verse 16. Zadivav Resh, that's that same word that we looked at previously. Lamed Zadivav Resh, which is form, image, picture, fashion, shape, hostility, foe, confine, besiege. Tav, Ayin Vav Dalet Hey. Ayin Vav Dalet, again and again, repeatedly, forcefully. Tav, Ayin Vav Dalet Hey means documentation, testimony, certification, and it's something that is a documented mission or purpose. So there's a rock or an image, a picture, a shape, certifying the purpose. Well, that's all the Bible stories that we have, isn't it? Then there's Chet Tav Vav Mem. Chet Tav, remember Daniel was told to hide the word and seal the book. This is the word seal, which means subscribed to by signature, an ensign, a seal. Then there's the word Torah. And then there's the word Bet Lamed Mem Dalet Yod. Well, Lamed Mem Dalet, that's Lamad, that's teach and learn. Teach and learn the Torah. We subscribed to a contract, covenant with Yahuwah, signed up, sealed, proven by whether we keep the Yom HaShabbat as a certification of the picture, the shape, the confine. He gave us the Sabbath day, he gave us the Torah. And he said, you walk in my ways and I'll bless you. And if you don't, you sign up for the curse, which is going to go on for 7 times more. Leviticus 26, Ezekiel 4. There's no way out of it. If you guys think my stuff is worthless, whatever, or you find it to be detestable, abhorrent, it's all coming down on you. That verse is translated, verse 16 of Isaiah 8, fasten this warning onto my people. Verse 17, Chet Kaf Yod Tav Yod, I have waited, expected unto Yahweh, the Hey Mem Samik Tav Yod Resh, hidden, contradiction, neutralized, refuted, concealed, Panav, his face, Mabet, from the house of Jacob. He's hidden his face from the house of Jacob. For how many years? Why? Why has Yahweh all these years hidden his face from his people? Because we won't do what he said. Because we won't listen to his Torah. But I have hoped unto him. Verse 18, Hine, Anoki, behold here gladly I am. And the Yod Lamed Dalet Yod Mem, and the children, but that's the native Mem Vav Lamed Dalet, native land, birthplace, that given to me Yahweh as signs and symbols, Aleph Tav Vav Tav, it's pronounced Odiot. That's like the Aleph Tav letters, Aleph Bet letters. Vav Lamed Mem Vav Pei Tav Yod Mem. So Mem Vav Pei Tav means wonder, miracle, sign, proof, exemplary demonstration of Israel being my people. Yahweh's Zavot, Ha-Shekan, that's like Mishkan. Ha-Shekan is dwelling, housing, caused to be established. Bahar Zion, on Mount Zion. But again, this word Bet-Het Resh, Bet-He Resh that I said Bahar meant clear, bright, explain, or clarity. Zion, Zadi Yod Vav Nun, is not just Mount Zion, but it's Zadi Yod is I commanded, and Mem Zadi Yod Nun, just to look at another spelling with Zadi Yod right in the middle, means distinguished, marked, excellent. It's like if you're doing a school paper and they give you an A or check or a star or 100. It's like something that means something. He specified clearly that he will dwell with his people when they do what he said, when he walks in his ways. Well, wait a minute. There's something that he's going to send in verse 14 that says it's going to look kadosh, but it's not kadosh. And it's to make you trip and fall and make you overthrown and besieged. A different voice to my daughter Israel. Then you get down into verse 19, and it says, and if they say to you, seek, the word is ha'abot, the fathers, and toward the Yod Dalet Ayin Nun, the scientists, and the Mem Zadi Pei, where you get the word hidden, covert, observatory, looking for the expected, conscience, I would say that would be the psychologists. And then Hey Mem Hey Gimel. Well, that comes from Hey Gimel Nun, which is propriety, best of its kind, worthy, suitable. It's the superstars and celebrities. It's like, listen, you want to know what's going on, check with the ancestors, the scientists, the psychologists, the celebrities. It's translated differently. Even it says, hello, Hey Lamed Vav Aleph, is it not that people should look to their own Elohim, Yadrash, and seek Ba'ad for witness, Ha-Chayim, the living, not the Metim, not the dead. He's saying, why are you guys looking everywhere except for what Yahweh said? He told you what's going on. This whole study of what did he say, who are we, and what should we be doing? Verse 20, la Torah, according to the Torah, vela ta'oda. Well, that's the word od, which is the same as documentation, testimony, certification, which is to say, according to the repeated testimony as documented. Well, that's all the stories in the scripture. Lo yamer, and if they don't speak, kadabar, like the words stipulated. We have the Torah, we have the testimony, and if you're listening to fathers, ancestors, scientists, psychologists, superstar celebrities, and they're not speaking according to these, Ein lo shachar. There ain't in them. Shachar is the word that you have meaning rise early, seek diligently, blackness before dawn. When it says that the women got up early on the first day of the week to find Yeshua or to go bring the spices to put on his body, they got up early. That's that word shachar. Shin het resh resh means release or liberation, first morning light, hope. It also means there's elucidation. Again, all the story descriptions, if you read the words in Hebrew, there's another message going on, but it says, it doesn't matter who you're listening to for what's going on with the conspiracy theories, what's going on with the space aliens and with the demons and the Nephilim, and if they don't talk according to the words of the Torah, there's no light, there's no elucidation. Just forget it. If you go to Isaiah 10 here, verses 20 to 23, little different subject, similar but different. Va heya, that's existing, beyom ha-hua, on the same day, lo, that means no, and then yod vav samik yod pei. Well, sif, Yosef is that same word, yom suf, that same word, gather up, collect, bring to an end, ode, ever again and again, repeatedly, forcefully. Shin aleph resh is the word for the remnant or those left behind of Israel. Then it says flit, that's where you get escape or rescue. Bet Yaakov, house of Jacob. Lamed Hey Shin Ayin Nun. Well, Shin Ayin, that's the word for saving. Shin Ayin Nun would be the act of being saved, yoked to Ayin Lamed with Mem Kaf Hey Vav. Well, Mem Kaf, Makkah, means to be whacked or hit. So it says, now think about this. They're talking about some big global reset going on. They're talking about some I don't even know what words we're allowed to say. Or are we trying? Jacob has a tendency to go to the one that hits it, hurts it, afflicts it. Jacob, part of the curse is Yahweh's going to turn his face away and he's not going to answer us. So we have to go to the one inflicting the harm to be rescued. Will you help me financially, medically, technologically? Oh, yes, here, we're going to give you all cell phones. They spy on you. They monitor everything you say. It's like you're putting your own chain and shackle on. It's like, why should Jacob have to go to the scientists, the psychologists, the fathers, the Abot, and say, I know you've done nothing but torment me. I know that you lie, you steal, and you kill, but I can only turn to you because my Elohim has turned his face on us. And he won't look at us, and we don't have anyone to appeal to. So we have to ask you for some favor. Can I have a few more crumbs before you remove my teeth? But this says, Nun, Shinai and Nun, jumping towards being saved, Ayin Lamed, yoked to Yahweh Kadosh Israel. Be Aleph Mem Tav. Bet Aleph means arrive. Mem Tav is death, but Aleph Mem Tav is in truth. And Aleph Mem means if. It's a mother. It's a nation. So it's saying, well, of course Israel's going to turn to Yahweh in truth. How else do you turn to Yahweh? Well, that goes back to what we were saying, that word Lamed Mem Kuf Dalet Shin. Is Yahuwah himself talking about, telling us that for the two houses of Israel, he's going to send something that looks holy, sacred, pure, which isn't. It's a trap. It's a snare. It's artistically designed with imagery, makes perfect sense. It'll be your downfall. It'll be your ruin if it's a different voice. Verse 22, the remnant of Jacob, Aleph Lamed hyphen Aleph Lamed Gabor. Aleph Lamed would be motion toward, Aleph Lamed, call it Elohim or God. Gabor means mighty warrior champion hero. So how is the remnant of Jacob going to turn toward El Gabor? To themselves being mighty champions? Jacob's been whipped and beaten and turned into a slave. How does Jacob turn into a mighty warrior champion? Verse 22 of Isaiah 10. Ki for if, Aleph Mem, if Yod He, Yahya, cause to exist, your people, Israel, Kaf, Chet, Vav Lamed. Well, Chet Vav Lamed means move in a circle, world dance. It happened. It's the word for phoenix. Kaf Het Vav Lamed, it says in the dictionary, means to paint your eyelids blue. What does that got to do? So again, is Kaf Het Vav Lamed, or is it Kaf prefix Het Vav Lamed? And then Hayim, the sea, the water, remnant return, Bet Vav, as they with them, Kaf Lamed Yod Vav Nun. Well, Kaf Lamed Yod is the word for bride. It means to be finished or consumed. It's all pining. Kaf Lamed Yod Vav Nun. That's that Yod Vav Nun suffix, like Zion. This is Kalion. It means pining, failing, annihilation, functional and instrumental. It's like, wait a minute. The reason Yahweh sent the plague, the misfortune, the destruction, was because Israel turned away from his Torah. The reason why Assyria came in, the reason why Babylon came in, the reason they were enslaved in Egypt, the reason he's sending in the space aliens, or that there's demonic manifestations and principalities overlording us for thousands of years, it was all functional, instrumental. Why? The next word, Chet Resh Vav Zadi, Charutz, gold. but it also means diligent, industrious, decided, determined. Verdict. It means cut, pointed tooth. Now think of all that. There's a verdict determined that has teeth. Well, gold is something, wow, I decide I want that. Oh, that's valuable. That's precious. That's something you're going after with a zeal. And then there's this word, shin vav tet pei. Well, shin vav tet or shin tet tet is the word for satanic or to go astray, to zigzag like a canoe. So shin vav tet pei means overflow, wash off, inundated, addicted to, fluency, flood, torrent, full speed, galloping horse, river rapids. Like putting a canoe going down a class 5 river rapids. Yeah. Zadika, the last word, Zadi Dalit Kufhe. What's he saying? It looks to me like he's saying that we should have this galloping desire for righteousness instead of the conspiracy theory, being obsessed with all this stuff, which is the punishments Yahweh sends upon us for not caring about his stuff. 23. Ki kala, so then, kaf yod, for if, because, thus, when, while, kaf lamed hey, that's like kaf lamed yod vav nun, like kalion, kaf lamed hey is the root of it, which means all or totally or the bride or like hers. So then, like her, nun, het resh zadi hey. Well, that het resh zadi, nun het resh zadi hey, is a derivative of that word for gold, het resh vav zadi, which means determine resolutely, absolutely, and unequivocally. Then there's the words Adonai Yahweh Zavot, Asha. When as a bride, when the bride of Yahweh, Am Israel, when we determine resolutely to seek his face, to walk in his ways, to keep his Torah like he said, instead of listening to the other voice that appears holy that isn't, that he sent as a trap, a snare, a plague to besiege us, box us in, and to cause our downfall. He sent it. Then it says Yahweh will do or make or produce bet kuf resh bet. Well, kuf resh bet means come near, approach, relationship, inner, heart, midst, but it's friend and it's also battle and war, kol haaretz, the entire earth, which throws us then back up into, that's Isaiah 10, verse 23, throwing us back into Isaiah 13, where he's going to send in the space aliens, his proudly exulting ones, exuberant over his grandeur, who are going to remove the sinners from the earth. When? When we, his people, have a passionate desire for zadika, righteousness, and determine resolutely and unequivocally, let's be his people, let's do what he said. He didn't say that we can or that we should fight against the bad guys. He didn't even give us any means to fight against the bad guys. They've got weapons. I've heard stories. Jumping back into the Isaiah 13 thing, I've heard stories. I've heard stories that all these UFOs are actually of human origin, that our guys have made them. I've heard other stories that, oh no. I've talked to people who supposedly know for a fact that there are multiple types of space aliens, extraterrestrials, coming from other galaxies spread across the universe that are actually living on the earth, some in underground cities, some are giant size. There's all different types. It's almost like the movie Men in Black is real. And some of them are anti-human, are aggressively evil, like that hornet that hit me in the face the other day. And some kind of seem to get along. Some are taking humans off the planet and taking them to other galaxies to farm them, to enslave them. And it's like, what? We never hear about that stuff. Yeah, we don't hear about a lot of stuff. So when Yahweh says, even if his people Israel are somewhere out in the heavens, like in a spaceship or on some other planet, he's going to bring them back to the land. That's what he said. So my point is, we were talking in the last few weeks about the wisdom of Solomon. I don't think was necessarily his worldly wisdom, that he was a pretty smart guy, though he was, that he was calculating how to make defensive entrances to cities, how to make different types of weapons, how to do maybe he had different types of ships or flying machines. Maybe he had all this different technological, what we would put into the realm of computer. They've found some things there. I forget what they call it. They found something in the bottom of the Mediterranean that looked like some sort of computer-like device, whether it was for calculating the stars or other computations. They had some pretty smart guys doing some pretty intelligent things back then. But it's not about that. It's about who is Yahweh. So when you see pictures and statues and icons, and you hear sermons and you hear wonderful words of wisdom from the church fathers, traditions handed down from the saints, is that Yahweh's Avot, Elohi of Israel? Or is it a different voice? Is it Kadosh? Or is it Makadosh? Is it sacred? Or is it away from being sacred? Does it take the wisdom of Solomon to be able to determine that? We better determine that. That's all we've got. If we with fluency, like rapids of a river, just a torrent of intent towards righteousness, we determine, even if we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how, but then that means that his punishment has functionally resolved. Once you learn to do the right thing, the punishment has no reason for continuing. There's other verses that talk about that as well. These verses here in Isaiah 10, and again, the reason I brought up this thing about Emmanuel had nothing to do with Emmanuel. So for I think it's maybe even the book of Luke quotes and says he'll be called Emmanuel, and it's like, that's not the story. This story was a kid that was born about 600 years before Yahusha was born. His name was supposed to be Emmanuel, because people are saying El is with us. Nu El, with us, Elohim. Well, if he's with us, then why are we afraid of the Syrians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Median? Because he put them as overlords. That's why. Why are we afraid of the demons and the Nephilim and the space aliens? Because he made them more capable than us. But remember what I was saying a few weeks ago. To be a human, to be Adam, is in his likeness and image, not the space aliens. To be Israel, because we want to walk in his ways. Well, that's not these other cultures and other religions. And if we're not just only his people, but we shema, we shomer, we listen, we korah, learn how to read, we Shabbat, we retain the moedim and say, I'm doing this enthusiastically because it yokes me to Yahweh's Avot. Then the big question I have is, why has the church at large, Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant, for 2,000 years, intentionally alienated itself? Why has it intentionally alienated itself from Yahuwah's Avot? By amalgamating its celebrations with heathen rituals and images. When he said, have no image, we have paintings and statues. There might be beautiful songs and liturgies. There might be a beautiful heart of true love and admiration and respect in the hearts of the worshipers. And I'm not questioning that. I'm not doubting that. I'm not castigating that. But Yahweh himself set up a trap, a snare, a minefield. And it looks to me like what he's saying is, I make it real simple. You regard the Torah or you don't. There you go. 613 laws. What's in the Torah? Truth and kindness, or wickedness and tearing people apart. Truth and kindness, emet and chesed. Mishpat, balanced scales versus injustice. And then he has a list of things that his people would do. And apparently Ephraim, well, the Judah also, but Ephraim in particular has this thing that it loves: stealing, lying, and killing. And Yahweh hates it when Ephraim does that. But that's Ephraim's tendency: lying, stealing, and killing. But yet that's, unfortunately, that's American policy, internationally as well as domestically: lying, stealing, and killing. I have to turn away from my allegiance to that flag and go for the Nun Samik, the flag of the meaning of Yahuwah's letters, the Nun Samik, the Hasna. Because that's the odio, that's the symbol, that's the fletchings on the arrow of truth that he has decorated himself with. To put everything in proper order so that you can look at it and say, what are we even seeing? That concept of Ayin Resh Kaf, Erectology, is to say, we don't know. We've been lied to. Okay, let's just look at it. Let's just look at the obvious. Attend diligently as Ayin Resh, as a watchman on the watchtower, looking, observing. What did he say? He said, when we move in a circle, and then the Hayam, that's like the sea, that's almost like this whirlpool. When the remnant returns with industrious determination for righteousness, the annihilation should be done, over. No more reason for it. That puts us in the driver's seat right now. If these words are truly what I'm looking at, then that means our attitude of just let's look at what he said, have it make sense, and be about the business of exclaiming the grandeur of Yahuwah, the return to the regard of his Torah. Well, that's that verse 21, where he says, when we return, the remnant of Jacob moves towards being El Gabor. That's the mighty warrior champions. And that returns Yahuwah to empower them as mighty warrior champions. How do we do that? Then there's that verse in Daniel 2 where it says that the Eben, the Aleph Bet Nun, the stone, not hewn with human hands. The other way to read that is that it doesn't say that it's hewn from the mountain, not with human hands. But it seems to, the way I read it, we could look at that another day if you want, is that the stone impacts the feet of the statue, not with human armed aggression. He's not calling us to pick up arms and fight these guys. Whether they're the space aliens, whether they're the demons, whether they're the Nephilim, whether they're humans from Assyria or Babylon or any other America or any other people group, Greece or Rome or Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Those are the nations represented by the metals in Daniel's, Nebuchadnezzar's vision of Daniel chapter 2. Just do what he said. Just do what he said with a heart for righteousness. That's what turns. And because it's all a reciprocal with the attitude of fervor, fluency, shinvav tet pei, fluency. You speak of fluency like a river raging, but also a language, being adept with his words. I'm not fluent. I can't hear Hebrew and know exactly. I have to stop and break it down into letter pieces. And like I said, part of the way language works is not just like Sabbati, not just knowing that, oh, the Shabbat, that means the Sabbath day. But why does in Turkish does that mean to be strengthened? Because if you keep his Sabbath day, you're strengthened. The same fellow asked me, one of his relatives' name is Lincoln. It's like, wow, Lincoln, boy, I never thought of that as a Hebrew word, but what do you think that would mean? And it's like, well, Lamed, Yod, Nun, Kaf, Lamed, Nun. Well, Kaf, Lamed, that means all or completely. Nun engaged in the attitude of something to be completely all in, kind of like this word for Shapet. Well, he said it means to sit by a lake, if I heard him correctly, to sit by a lake. And it's like, well, if you wanted to put yourself into the occasion where you're just at peace, everything works. We're finally there. Is that the word Lincoln? Is that, in other words, the way to look at these words are, one thing is what it means, but the other thing is extrapolating from the words, how do you do that? Or what does that look like? So a lot of these words, and I'm saying this because that's kind of where you got to go with translating the scripture. It's one thing to know exactly what the word says. What does it mean? What was Yahuwah trying to tell us? And then now, how do we do that? How do we accomplish that? To learn his language fluently as an act of worship. To me, to be thinking about his words, the spelling of his words, hey, gimel, hey, haggah, navigate, rudder, helm, steering wheel, spell words phonetically. It's a type of prayer. It's a type of communicating with him, drawing close to him. And he says he will draw near, either in friendship or battle with the entire earth. According to the way, if I read the word aretz, ha'aretz, aleph, resh, zadi. Resh, zadi is that desire of running. So that with the desire of running to be his people fluently, understanding his otiot, Yahweh's avot, his Torah, what did he say? What does he want us to do? That's what we pursue, and he puts us on as his headdress. So what is Israel's occupation? Just to be Yahuwah's headdress. That's our purpose. It isn't we're supposed to be the biggest, toughest gladiator. We're supposed to be Yahweh's headdress. If we're exclaiming his name, if we're regarding his Shabbat, if we are keeping his Moedim, if we're going about in truth and kindness and justice, that's all he wants from us. We're not necessarily called to be great scientists or great gymnasts or great musicians or great athletes. Nothing wrong with any of that. But what I'm saying is Israel's called to be Yahuwah's headdress, declaring his glory. When we start doing what he said, he'll put on that headdress and go to war. against our adversaries when he can don us as his military apparel. That's our 5 minutes. That's our job description. If we knew that that's all we had to do, and we use our creativity to figure out how to do it, we make that our life purpose, our mission. Who are you? What are you about? Yahweh is my Elohim. That's my only claim to fame. Israel's his claim to fame, to say that we're his tafarta, his headdress, his glorious projection of manifesting his supremacy. He wears his people Israel. And if we look like the heathen against his Torah, like the black feather, he'll ruin us and destroy us and burn us like Sodom and Gomorrah. If we stand up for him in his purity, his cleanness, rejoicing, Yahweh is my Elohim, he's happy to come in and bring with him his invasion fleet. That's this picture, but I don't recall ever having been taught that picture for all the years of my life. It's only in trying to figure out what are these words saying that I get this picture. Anyway, we're at the end of the occasion here. Is there anything that anybody else wants to say before we turn off the recording, or just wait till after the after show? Does anybody feel like saying anything about this matter? If so, you can turn on your mics.
Sorry,
you got anything to say, Kurt?
No. I mean, I do, but I don't know what to say. It's a trippy subject, for sure. I don't know if Faraday cages work, but we'll have to find out. You'll have to let us know.
Well, nobody's got me this morning since I've been wearing it, so that must say something.
Well, that you know of. I don't
That's
know.
right.
They could have beamed all this information into your brain that you just gave us.
Well, it kind of almost doesn't matter who the bad guys are. Yahweh's on our side. We're on his side. Yahweh is my Elohim. That's all that matters. That's our total regard right there.
I think the biggest thing that I keep taking away the more we dig into this is that like he didn't arm us or equip us or anything. Remember coming out of Egypt with the family and everything. He wants the battle. He wants to win it. He wants all the credit. So just I mean, the way we fight is to sit down and relax on the Shabbat. Like, it's literally the opposite of everything you've ever seen in a hero movie anyway. So,
right.
That's what he calls us to do, which is an interesting concept at the minimum, you know?
Yeah, it's counterintuitive. The whole thing. It's like he could have made us big tough guys. Like you read the book of Jasher, you know, the heroics of those 12 patriarchs. He called us to just sit down and claim his name, and as we walk in righteousness.
Which, I don't know, I think that points to his humor. He's hilarious. I think that's just funny. You know what I mean? Like, this is how we're going to fight. I'm going to fight, and you're just going to sit back and do nothing.
Cheer him up.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to end it in prayer. Thank you, Father, for joining with us and teaching this, and whatever's happening out there, let's just not worry about it, that we just focus on you, because they sure are trying to point to something, but maybe we just don't care. Thank you. We care about you. In Yahuwah's name I pray. Amen.
Let me say one thing before you shut down. There's a song that I recently heard on the came up on the internet, a famous singer, presently very well, highly regarded. And basically the song saying, everything's going to be okay. Just relax. Everything's fine. It's like, I'm sorry, but that's like saying God loves you. It's not biblical. Are you kidding me? Didn't you just read what he said he's going to do? He's going to tear the heck out of this place. If you're his people, walking in his ways, it'll be okay. But that song doesn't qualify that people group. And anytime somebody says, it'll be okay, don't worry, it'll be okay, not necessarily turn to Yahuwah, regard his Torah, walk in his ways, ask him to forgive you with Hodu Layuaki Tov, then there's his chesed. But there's a lot of bad talk that looks like it's holy sacred, but it's counter. I think that's what those verses are talking about, which I said, verse 14 of Isaiah 8, which is, man, am I calling what other people's sacred religion stuff, if it's anti-Torah, to be actually a minefield designed by Yahweh to blow the heck out of his own people? That's not everything's going to be okay. Just saying, this is serious stuff. Anyway, there you go.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining. I'm going to turn this off in a second.